Good evening and happy Monday, everybody. I hope you all had a holy and refreshing weekend. And, some good things did happen over the weekend. I was able to see friend of the show, Corey, and his family out in Virginia. So that was a good time. But I regret to inform you that I fell into a rabbit hole yesterday, a YouTube rabbit hole, and spent more time on the platform that I had intended. So let's see if we can recover a little bit of that time with a little bit of useful insight here. The particular rabbit hole that I happened to fall down was on the theme of cosmic horror. It was, that's the sort of thing that you would associate with H.P. Lovecraft. And although people who are very refined and sophisticated in their literary opinions would remember the nautical narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym by Edgar Allan Poe as being an earlier example of that. And this particular channel that I was unfortunately spending too much time on was going over some of this media that I hadn't ever engaged with and encountered, and I got kind of sucked in there. So, the tropes of cosmic horror are pretty familiar to us. It's not, it's something that's gotten ingrained into the popular consciousness. People have a vague sense of who H.P. Lovecraft is and what his stories are about, and they can identify, the marks of the genre, even when they might not be all that terribly familiar with it. So there's something about that cosmic horror genre and something like the works of H.P. Lovecraft that is resonating with people. And that's a really interesting thing because, that's not something that you're ever going to encounter. Now, there's fiction about all sorts of things that we're never going to encounter. I will never get to serve as first officer on the Starship Enterprise, even if such a thing were to someday exist. It's technologically far beyond what we're capable of, and we would need like 50 continuous breakthrough of physics to be able to even to begin building something like that. So I'm not expecting that in my lifetime, but there's something a little more relatable about a lot of science fiction in that it's got this sense of exploration into the unknown, and that's something that you could do just by going to a new city. So there's a little bit more there to relate to, but seeing some ancient being rising out of the sea and the revelation driving you mad, that's not something that's likely to ever happen to you. That's not something that's likely for you to actually encounter. And yet these stories about Cthulhu or whatever cosmic horror you wish to consider, they still grab us. They still focus our attention, and they still speak to us in a way. And so I was pondering, why do these stories about, cosmic horrors and living planets and, nameless ancient things, why do they grip us so much? And I wonder if it isn't a part of a materialist, like a materialistic way of thinking, if there isn't some anxiety about spiritual bodies and religion that's underneath all of this cosmic horror writing. You've got certain tropes that continue to speak up. There's usually some sort of a religious element behind these. It's not necessarily universal. You've either got a religious element or, man's hubris with nature underlying these things. There's very often kind of a contraction of somebody's free will, one way or the other, that they get bound to something bigger than them, regardless of their of their intentions, and that we're dealing with something that's ancient and powerful. That we're not dealing with a novelty there. So I think, I think the religious elements of that, the the contraction of human agency, and the ancientness and the vastness of the things that you're interacting with, speak into materialist anxieties about, let's be frank, religion. And that's actually, that's not all bad. That's not necessarily a misapplication of the pattern. Now, certainly, I would be a little bit annoyed and mildly offended if somebody, took these cosmic horror stories of H.P. Lovecraft and some of the more, modern imitators of that genre, and said that every single religion ever follows that pattern. Certainly, I think that my religion, when it's operating properly and people are doing what they intend, what they ought to, does not operate that way. And I would even extend that courtesy to many other ancient traditions that, if something's lasted for, say, more than 1,000 years, it's probably because it works, even if it doesn't have the fullness of truth that is in the Catholic Church there. But you can see, how these cosmic horror stories of these, usually cultists summoning some ancient thing that contracts your agency, that binds you to it in a way that's not good for you, would be just kind of the same pattern as somebody being caught into an evil religion that contracts your agency, that does not lead to reciprocal opening and thriving, but rather leads into a narrow fixation on something that's destructive and something that's meaningless there. And I think that the way this is depicted tends to be very materialistic. So you usually have some very, very large creature that's beyond this, and it's the sheer unnatural scale of the animal that far dwarfs anything that we would ever see in the animal kingdom. That's how a materialistic mind would imagine that a real spiritual body operates. It's the only way for them to depict these patterns that they might be picking up on in a way that they can access. And so we can still read these stories as Catholics, but we have better tools to deal with this. We have a clear sense of the demonic. We have the ability to think about these demonic entities, and their influence on society, and influence on individuals. And we know how to deal with these things. We rebuke them in the name of Jesus, and by the power of His blood, we can have dominion even over these demonic entities there. So that's just something that I noticed by spending too much time on YouTube, that this cosmic horror genre seems to be a materialist approach to religion, basically, to spiritual bodies, much like the mystical body of Christ, which subsists in the Catholic Church. All right, so we've got the link posted, and you're welcome to come on. Mark says that H.P. Lovecraft is the best. Picking a different best for today. Very eclectic, collapsed family wealth from the prior century, not well known at his time. And it seems like Mark agrees with my hypothesis that cosmic horror fills the gap created by the mating crisis. And now, friends of the show, Mark and Kirk, are going to fill the gap in my screen and discuss these things. So, what do you think?
This is the best possible topic that anybody could ever choose at any time for any purpose. That's what I think.
Wow.
I'm upset that I haven't thought of it myself now, but that's okay. I can't think of everything.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, the gap created by the meaning crisis gets filled by random things. And if you've read Lovecraft, which of course I have, because if you haven't read Lovecraft, can you read? Why read? What is reading? Also, don't read Lovecraft because you like nightmares. Just terrible. Like
I didn't sleep particularly well last night. And you know what? That was my fault. And we're going to do better.
Yeah. No, I mean, the only time I've ever actually been scared in my life at all was reading Lovecraft. That's just once. So not all the stories, but one in particular. Yep. Yeah, it just occurred to me as you were talking about this. So when you have an atheist mind view, whatever that might entail, right? Well, in other words, when you don't have a structure to your religion, because as we all know, if you believe you do not have a religion, one will be provided to you without your knowledge or consent. What can fill the void is technically, mathematically infinite, right? So Lovecraft has a way of putting words together, which is absolutely brilliant. Like, there's Milton and there's H.P. Lovecraft, as far as I can tell. That gives you that sense. He somehow is able to brilliantly evoke certain things out of you, like the fear of the infinite unknown, fear of a monster that you can't see but can affect you. Things like that. And the way he crafts this, I don't understand it. Like, I don't, like, it's just magic as near as I can tell. And it's almost all short stories. I think his longest story is, like 130 pages. Like, it's a novella maybe. And he's also created a world, right? Like a comic book world, only his is way more interesting, I would say. But the world is filled with monsters. It's filled with undefined monsters. And if you want to experience, we'll say, some of the brilliance of Lovecraft without the horror, there's a great story that he has called the Horror at Red Hook, which is actually a noir detective story. It doesn't have the same.
It was popular at the time. Those detective stories.
Yeah, but he grew up under very strange circumstances, and like, he's born in the 1800s, the late 1800s, right? And his mother dresses him like a girl, and she's kind of whatever. They've lost their family wealth. This is the changeover in the economy, and so they live in a very opulent house with a very nice library from the grandfather, right? And they're just burning through their money for whatever, why-ever. But a lot of people were doing that back in New England at the time. And so we're right at the period where the whaling was waning, the wealth from the whaling. And he's in Rhode Island, right down the street. I mean, I'm sure there was plenty of whaling going on from Rhode Island too, but not as much as New Bedford, obviously, or Nantucket. But there's a change, an economic change that's happening as a result of that. And the old money is going away into things like whaling, and the old systems of financing new things is changing completely. I mean, this is where everything flips, right? Late 1800s, early 1900s, economically, everything it goes in a weird direction. It would take a lot of research to figure out, like, all the weird things that happened, right? So all the early car companies, which were started in Springfield, Massachusetts, I'm sure everybody is well aware of, long before Detroit, they're all funded by, in the old manner, right? It's all cousins and relatives of wealthy people starting car companies. And there's like a dozen of them or something on one street in Springfield, Mass. And that mode of transferring money is going away and being replaced by more of this banking investment thing that JP Morgan is pioneering, right? For very interesting reasons too. Like JP Morgan doesn't need any money. He's already super well. Like they own all the banking between this little place, you might have heard of it, France and the United States, right? And they do international banking. I think that they're one of the large. I don't know if they're the largest. They're one of the largest international banking firms. And he's rebelling against his father, saying, no, I want to invent something and create something new, like Edison's doing. That's why he invested in Edison, for example. And he invested a bunch of other people, and like Westinghouse is coming up, and Pullman is coming up, and all these guys, right, during this time period. So the old money, the old ways of making money, all the old ways of being in the world, like all the old patterns are broken apart. And he is caught in the
very, very specifically for him, right? Like in his family.
Yeah, his family in particular. He's right in the middle of this. So he wants to just sit and read books and be weird. That's what he wants. He doesn't want to go outside. He doesn't want, he does manage to get married eventually, but it doesn't work out fantastically well. And also the old buildings are going away. They're being replaced by new buildings. And so a lot of his writing is all about going to older villages and experience something older than, basically the late 1800s, early 1900s. And I don't know if you can still do this trick. I don't think it works. But when I was young, you could still go to parts of Rhode Island and parts of Massachusetts and get a sense for what he was writing. Like, oh, no, I know that. Because there was still a lot of buildings that were built in the late 1700s, right? Mm-hmm. Which to him would have been 100 years old, right? So there were enough places around with like 4 or 5 of those in the same neighborhood, right? And so you get a real feel for how it looked. I don't know if that's still true. In fact, I couldn't tell you where I was the 2 or 3 times I managed to pull it off. And they do have a conference where they take you around to a bunch of places. I don't know if they're still running the conference. I haven't checked post fake news virus scam, but that the environment that he's in is at the same time publishing has collapsed. So he's not able to write books. I mean, he doesn't write any books really. What he's writing is for Pulp magazine. And eventually there's one called Weird Tales that he gets, caught up with. And it's interesting because that to me is the destruction of literature, is this time period. This is when literature gets flooded with newspapers and pulp magazines and dime novels and that whole thing. That starts in the 1800s, in the mid to late 1800s. And then, it just collapses.
And so with that kind of mass market appeal, you're going to be getting a lot more lowest common denominator, penny dreadfuls, just sensational and not having near as much for the mind,
Right. But also these guys are niche. I mean, they're really niche. No one reads Weird Tales, man. No one. This is all like way, only 4 people ever read this thing. Like it's now they're super committed fans because they're outliers. And
it's the Trekkies of the early 1900s.
Yeah, you tend to get people who like got every episode of whatever pulp. Like there are people out there who got every episode of the pulp stuff and kept it until it disintegrated. I mean, they still were making finds in the early 2000s at least, where they were like, oh yeah, here's a new copy of a thing we knew was written and we didn't have any copies of it because it's written on this cheap garbage material, right? Which is again the collapse of literature. Oh, you think the written word is magic, huh? Well, guess what happens when the paper vanishes? The written word goes too, buddy. Yeah, and I mean that's part of why the digital revolution was such an important thing in the age of Gnosis was, well, now we keep the written word forever, because that's not true either, but that's a different problem. The retard's going to keep retarding. We've lost lots of stuff. even that was digitized. And so the collapse is real, but into this collapse, as with all collapses, you get these niche things, and this was a niche thing. Was this whole weird genre of gothic horror was what it was technically called back then, and even just fantasy horror in general, as two separate genres will say, excuse me, that's all new. um, and a lot of the stuff too is based on older works. So there's Edgar Allan Poe, and then who wrote the King in Yellow? I have it somewhere. Oh, there. Hold on. Let me grab it. Yeah. So you have a lot of stuff. Oh yeah, Robert Chambers. You have a lot of stuff based on this book, and this book, this King in Yellow book by Robert W. Chambers. And I haven't read the whole thing because it's a really tough read, actually. This genre and Edgar Allan Poe set the scene for a bunch of this type of work, right? So there's sort of the pillars of this genre exploring weirdness. This, I haven't finished it. It's not actually that long, but also it's a really hard read. It's just the stuff they're doing, even word wise, and how they're doing sentence structure and stuff is really difficult to read. But what they're doing, I don't know when this was published originally. Damn it, that would help. What they're doing is they're talking about these non-material experiences. They're talking about people who are insane or who go crazy. They're talking about what Jung would call synchronicities, right? That's what the King in Yellow is all about. Oh, really? Okay. Oh, I didn't think it was that late. 1895. That's pretty late. Although Lovecraft is 5, so a bunch of people are picking up on that, and Edgar Allan Poe, and creating this new genre, which I think wouldn't exist unless the meaning crisis were already in full swing. And of course, if you haven't seen the Moby Dick Book Club, you should, because we kind of go over that. And yeah, it's a really interesting book. It got mentioned in True Detective, that HBO series, the first season there. It got mentioned there. It gets dropped occasionally, and that becomes a trope that they use in their fiction. So there becomes a circle of these guys around like weird tales and stuff. Robert Bloch is one of them. There's a few authors in that space. And what they do, which is also, I believe, done in The King in Yellow, is they drop these literary references that are unique to their library, basically, because no one's read The King in Yellow. It's insane. It's not as it's not gothic horror, so it's not necessarily what we would call existential, although I'd argue it is. So some of the stories are very strange, like people turning into statues, because of chemical. Right? It's very much of its time. It's very much of, like, you read some of these stories and it's like, oh wow, this is so how it worked, because it's very much the old world is leaving. Right? There's very Otto von Bismarck stuff in there, like, the way the structure. And they're talking about New York City in one of these stories, and I'm like, I can't imagine New York City being like that, because no one's ever described it that way in the 1800s to me, ever. Which I don't know if Chambers made it up, if he's blending something that was still happening in Europe with something that I don't know ever happened in the U.S. anywhere, or what. I don't have any idea. But it was interesting because the format of the story, of that particular story, was that the old world was crumbling, and there was a new world enabled by technology, in this case chemistry. And so all of those elements of the old world versus the new world, what Lovecraft is doing is he's saying the old world never went away. It's older than time or something, effectively, right? It's beyond our memory, and those old things are not only not to be trifled with, but the problem is they're going to wake up. And when they wake up, you are completely screwed. There's nothing you can do. And so there's a game based on it's one of the Paranoia games series of games, and basically the point of the game is to actually imbue all the players with a sense that it's completely hopeless. Like that's the goal, because Lovecraft's horror does that, right? It puts you in such a position, you get so small relative to the world he builds that there's no hope for you whatsoever. I mean, if you awaken Cthulhu, it's all like everything's gone. Everything, everywhere, anything that you could know about is gone. And and so he's got this whole thing where there's a veil, and I think that's in the King in Yellows too, though, to be fair. I don't think he came up with it, but there's a veil between the material and the ethereal. I wonder why do I know these things? Reading Lovecraft is very useful, and so sometimes it gets pierced, right? Or you can jump between or go across or whatever, transport across, however you want to think about it. I forget how he does it in all the stories. He does it a little bit differently in different stories. And then there's other times when just people get reattuned and they can see the ethereal stuff, and it just drives them mad because you can't process those things. They're not processable by your brain. And the fact of the matter is, if you read Lovecraft, he will make you understand that. Like, he will make you a believer.
Yeah.
It's something.
Well, I'm surprised, though, you mentioned like the existential part and like the old world versus new world thing. I'm surprised, given what you said about Kafka previously, because that is a lot of what Kafka explores, is the alienation of identity in the modern world.
Yeah, that's not what Lovecraft explores. So there's no overlap. Kafka can't write also, so that's another problem. Very clever guy, comes up with what, a cool-ish concept. Not a good writer. Not a good writer at all. Terrible.
So I'm looking at, what Lovecraft is trying to describe here, and I'm trying to contrast that with kind of my experience of being a Catholic and all of that. One of the things that you mentioned is that you feel incomprehensibly small in the Lovecraftian stories, right? There's these things that are so huge, and you can't contend with that. You can't live on that level,
right?
But like having faith in God kind of has the same effect, because it's like, yeah, boy, what would an infinite being be like? And then you start running through the whole way of building up the natural theology, and then you put that together with the revelation, 1,000 years or as a morning gone to you,
but it's ordered. That's the difference.
Right. But like, and here's the really the really intense thing, and the thing that that grabs people and converts them, is when they realize that, oh, wait a minute, that mystery at the top of the universe cares for me. And that's kind of the realization. If somebody's in trouble, and they're in a crisis, like when that realization breaks through, that's what ends up, reorienting them. And you can see you've got like the upside down version of that in Lovecraft, where it's like Cthulhu probably doesn't even know that you exist.
Cthulhu cannot sense you in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's something else interesting that you mentioned was like, the old world never went away. And, I just make a little angelology connection here, but, angels, according to Thomas Aquinas, friend of the show, they don't pass through time continuously like human beings do. They jump between acts of knowing, which for them are kind of the same thing as doing things, right? So it would be perfectly comprehensible in a Thomistic system, which he gets all from Dionysius the Areopagite, that would be exactly how it works. That these old demons, these old patterns,
Yeah.
little hard to distinguish between those two, could just come back at any moment, and maybe we'll reinvent child sacrifice.
Well, they
Maybe
do.
that's already happened, like who could say?
Yeah, they do. I want you to know, Father, if we need to discuss any of the stories in particular, I have this in the office. Obviously, it's so just in case, I'm prepared. Now I want to do Lovecraft. I have to read this whole thing at some point. I mean, I read everything in this book once, at least. But yeah, there is a project in my back of my head when I get time and energy to go back through all the Lovecraft. But yeah, the difference is the ordering, right? And Lovecraft probably would have been very well read in the classics,
Right.
like very well, because he was not aristocracy. We don't have aristocracy as close as you can get, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's gone. But I if I remember correctly, his grandfather left him a library, so he had a library. And that we know what that library was filled with in that time.
Well, Harvard Classics, probably.
Yeah, all the Latin and Greek texts, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I actually, Father, do have a question about this idea of something like greater than you, but it's very tangential, if that's okay.
I think we've gone and explored that pretty well. But if it comes back up, we'll touch on it again. What's on your mind?
So have you heard of Newcomb's paradox in decision theory? Okay, so Newcomb's paradox is the idea that, let's say there's a predictor that can predict your decisions with near 100% certainty. And
okay. Was this on a Veritasium video recently?
It was on a Veritasium video. I don't think it was recent, but I learned about it independent of Veritasium video. But basically, if it predicts that you'll choose just the opaque box, then you'll get the million. Then presumably it won't take the $1 million out. But if it does, then it will take the $1 million out if you take both boxes. So the question is, do you take both boxes or one box? Because if you take both boxes, maybe you can trick the predictor and earn $1 million and $1,000 because a transparent box has $1,000 guaranteed. But if the predictor is right and the opaque, then it does take the opaque box out, then you would lose out on the $1 million.
Yeah, that's not a paradox technically, by the way, but I'm glad that people are dumb enough to think that would be a paradox. It's excellent. Good to know.
I mean, this is another one of those things where like you can kind of play around with it in your head, but because such things don't exist, it's hard to really, engage with them. That seems like a trap for mathematicians right there, or statisticians or something like that. But what you need to know, Kirk, is I'm a man of action. So I probably just would steal the predictor box and use it in politics or something.
Okay, but you would not have a perspective on whether you should take both boxes and try and trick the predictor, or just take the $1 million box and take your bets.
I think I'll just take the $1 million box, because always go for the sure thing.
Okay.
Base hits, Kirk.
Well, but that's also, it answers questions of like, well, what if the money's already in there and nothing you do will change the predictor's decision, like retrocausality.
That wouldn't be retrocausality. That's playing God, and you can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, the main problem is that these things don't exist, right? So you could play around with this idea of retrocausality, but like, okay, build the predictor box first. And
then we'll talk. Yeah.
And then we'll talk about this. And then get the $1 million. Who's going to bankroll this?
You know, it does exist. There is a hexagonal storm raging right now on, is it Saturn or Neptune? One of those planets. And
at the top, right?
Yeah. And I started listening when you guys were talking Lovecraft, and I don't really know how it started, but yeah, when it comes to big, sublime, terrible things, my money's on the planets over Cthulhu, but that's just me.
Cthulhu couldn't take on Saturn all by himself. That's probably true.
Or maybe they're the same thing. I don't know. It could just be the same thing.
Cthulhu's way bigger than planets. You guys are.
That's fair. That's fair.
You guys are not nowhere in the ballpark.
I don't want to derail it, but I it was a week or two ago. I came in and I was trying to be a Jackson Pollock defender, and so I wanted to just bring that up again and see what's the beef with Pollock, or is it his modernist project in general, Father?
Yeah, I mean, oh, okay. You called me a Philistine, didn't you?
Yeah. It was a cheap shot at the end of the stream. I didn't get a chance to come on and talk about it, but I'm it was all in good fun. Have you seen a Pollock in person?
Not in person, no.
Oh,
I have.
okay.
Garbage.
What do you think, Mark? Do you think it's garbage? It's a.
Obvious garbage.
Why is it garbage? Why is it garbage?
It doesn't connect to anything.
Doesn't need to connect to anything.
Or rather,
it's okay.
well, hold on. Let me take
Yeah.
let me take the Lovecraftian approach.
Okay.
Brought
Yeah.
up.
All
It
right.
connects to everything, which is worse. Like now
Beautiful.
you're in the Lovecraftian horror.
Beautiful.
In art, Pollock
Uh-huh.
would be a Lovecraftian horror piece of art. That's what it would be. That's the closest analog, and I think it's a fair one.
Well, you call that the sublime, though, right? Like an aesthetic experience, right?
No, I wouldn't call that sublime at all. I don't.
Why couldn't it be sublime?
Why couldn't it be? Because that's not the quality of sublime. I mean, it
Okay, maybe
connects
that's
to
sublime.
everything, therefore it could connect to the sublime. I mean,
Well, it doesn't. I mean, I don't know. Like,
Sublime
how does it connect to everything? I mean, it's just a painterly.
So
painting.
you could imagine it connecting to everything because you could impose any sort of order on it from the outside, and nobody would be able to tell you that that's not really in there. So
Right.
so just on account of the sheer, I mean, it's basically like a still
Controlled chaos.
version of your TV screen static. Back when we had broadcast.
Oh,
TV,
I think if our broadcast TV static looked like Pollock's, we'd probably be tuning into that more often. I mean, I don't think that's a fair characterization. I think
no, it's the same mathematically. See, this is what people miss. They go, "Oh no, there's sublime fractal math." Okay, in everything actually, because it's true of everything. So, but I do think Sally Joe being an artist, like you gotta highlight that one, Father. Because I think she gets to the bottom of it, right? And I think to be fair, I think she left out the word all, right? All postmodern art is trash. Yes.
yeah, but I feel like it needs a more serious. It needs a more serious critique than that because
Like everybody says that, but
Pollock is popular and Sally is not. For instance, and
Sally's super popular. Pollock's
not as popular as Pollock. I'm sorry.
Everybody knows Pollock. Nobody likes Pollock.
And why is that?
Nobody likes Pollock.
He doesn't need to be
That's the
likable.
Right?
He doesn't need to be likable. Nobody liked the characters on Seinfeld either, but everybody watched the show. I mean,
So
they're not
Jonathan.
likable
About
people.
things is a different question about being popular. Like
It's a painting about everything. Well, popularity is not. I mean, that's obviously a logical fallacy to say it's because it's popular, it's good. But anyway, you were saying
I'm not an artist. I don't have much facility with either plastic or visual arts. Kind of the best, like my peak is the countdown video that I made for this stream. That's about as, and I just stole that from the Basilica of St. John Lateran in Rome. I've just decided that if my eyes are going to tell me that something's just nonsense and that there's nothing for me to actually connect with, that I'm just not going to admire that, and I guess I just have this conviction of a rational, and when I say rational, I mean it in the sense of ratio, as Thomas Aquinas would use it, a rational universe where things are properly ordered and there are knowable things in the world. And if your art is completely lacking in any kind of truth, right, veritas, any kind of intellectual supposit for the mind to grab onto, even if it's ambiguous, right, I can put up with ambiguous, like that's fine. Or even if it's a little bit vague, I think some of the impressionist works are good, and bring something new there. But I'm just not going for like just the chaos. Like I can't. It's the chaos there might even be worse than the propaganda. I'm not sure about that, but it might be.
Can confirm.
What's the propaganda?
Well, so I mean, there's a lot of this modern art theory that's talking about, all art is political. It needs to have, a political purpose, and it needs to be affecting change.
Maybe.
Yeah, well, there's people who say that, right? Like, I don't think I'm making it up. Like,
No.
I
No.
don't
I'm not saying you're making it up. Definitely, there's people that say that. I don't think they're right.
Right. And so the Pollock, like with the propagandists, at least they're like pointing at something, even if it's usually pretty dumb. But then you get to the Pollock, and if it's just like a pure aesthetic, like I don't think it's actually possible. Okay, I'm feeling my way forward here, but like just an aesthetic experience, like just a sensory experience, like that would be like that one time that I passed out, and like my vision was filled with colors and my hearing was just filled with sound, and it was very unpleasant, even before I woke up with the broken nose and the chipped tooth, right? So that's what like a purely sensory experience is, and I'm just not here for it.
Yeah, that's what Sally's comments point to as well, right? Pollock's paintings are much like these other things, a crystal ball, right? Bird bones, like this isn't new. It doesn't point to anything or connect to anything or have any structure or order in it. It is a negation of those things, right? It doesn't support them. It doesn't cooperate with the rest of the world. And so if you have a rebellious spirit and you want to justify, see, we have art too, which would be false, then maybe you like Pollock, but you can't say what you like about it. That's more the issue.
You can say what you like about Pollock.
So what is it?
We can definitely say that there's an impressive aesthetic experience that he evokes by.
I don't even know what that is. What do you mean? It doesn't work on me.
Well, that's fine.
Well, what does that even mean? Like,
it doesn't work on you, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work on other people.
You get that thing from any other thing in the world. Like, how is it? Why are you distinguishing Pollock's in particular?
I mean, because there's an originality to what he was painting that hadn't come before and has been, imitated since. But he was original in that.
Well, I don't think he's original at all, but I mean, I guess.
Well, I mean, so who was making paintings like Pollock's before Pollock?
Well, I did something very similar in kindergarten with watercolors, just random.
I mean, I've seen kids do that, like that happen. But more importantly,
no, you haven't. No, but that's not true. You haven't seen kids do that.
No, I have. No, I definitely have.
No, you haven't.
Watched children with brushes in different colors.
Sure. Yeah, kids will make all kinds of kids will make marks all over papers. I get that. But they're not making Jackson Pollock. No. But they're not making Jackson Pollock paintings.
We could be conspiratorial and say that the difference is that the kids are not being propped up by the CIA. I mean,
that's true too. That's true too, right? But technically, there's no difference. You can't point to a technical difference.
Okay, so like, what do you think of Picasso's Cubism? Junk, garbage?
I mean, I'm not.
So I think there's a little more to it. I think Picasso's got
structure. Like, you can connect to it, and you can connect it to the world. I'm not a fan. I don't think it's particularly insightful or anything. Like, I don't think it's like a super great work of art. Like, I'm not going out of my way for that. I mean, Botticelli, yeah, I'll go out of my way for that. Renoir, I could take him or leave him, but at least I understand why people think it's art and what they like about it. So, for example, when you're talking about styles of painting, right? You can talk about styles of painting. You can say, oh, this style comes from this, right? And then maybe maybe the guy couldn't see anymore, right? Like whatever. There's all kinds of ways that these quote styles come about. But it's important to understand many, if not all, but many of these quote art styles are fashions that happen as the result of mimicking other artists and saying, oh, it's cool. What if we had, we got more colors? Well, now we can do something different when we paint the same landscapes, right? And so you get into this experimentation, and those experimentations are typically turn into art movements, and not all the experiments do, of course, right? They're experiments.
Because Caravaggio didn't build a movement.
Right. So when you understand that, you can say, oh, well, we know what art movements are, and we know how they work. And we know that nothing like that happened with Pollock. That should be a hint. And it doesn't connect to anything. And there isn't a stylistic thing about it. Like there's nothing you can point to that makes it unique from the small children, except, and thank you for correcting me, Christopher, except the fact that he was paid by the CIA. So
Caravaggio also was part of a movement. I mean, they're all in a tradition. That tradition tends to get a little self-referential for some time.
Kids aren't being used for tax fraud. Sally. That too. Yeah.
I just I don't know.
Okay.
It's an interesting thing to ponder, but I don't know. This is probably a conviction of not only being a Catholic priest, but being a Thomist as well, that you got to have something for the mind to grab onto. So that one, Picasso painting that was depicting World War I, and just like I could connect with that. I could see, the paint expressions on all the different faces, and I could see something into it. I'm not sure I would ever put something like that in my home, especially that one in particular, just because it's painful to encounter, and I've only got so much tolerance for that, and I'm not going to apologize for not being a masochist. But I do think having that veritas for the mind to connect with is important there, and there's just something.
You don't have a collection of Hieronymus Bosch paintings in your residence?
No, but I know a priest who does. He's got the Garden of Earthly Delights hanging in his office.
Okay.
And I mean, that one's fun to study, but I would leave it. I would leave it. I would just leave it. Someplace where I don't have to see it every day.
It belongs in a museum.
It does. Some of these things, they're just fine in museums. That's great. There is something, I think, pernicious, kind of in a 1984 way of, the party will tell you that 2 + 2 = 5 and you'll believe it, with some of these art movements. And you see it, you can see it like manifesting in Catholic art. And it's always a certain type of progressive who makes some horrible depiction of Jesus that just looks alien, tells you it's based on like African, tribal art, and then says you have to appreciate this. And if you don't appreciate it, you're getting kicked out of seminary or whatever. As a way, and it makes a great loyalty test right there. If you can like look at something ugly and say that you're going to celebrate it, so that's the sort of theme that that book you gave me that I'm still working through.
Yeah.
Father Mankowski would be right on board with that.
Yeah, he's probably not a Pollock enjoyer, but he might have stuck up for me a little bit here if he was still with us. How far have you gotten through the book?
I'm about 2/3 of the way through. I have to take it in small doses because I get kind of fired up, and I'm ready to go hit somebody. You would like this guy, Mark, calling out evil every day of his life. So
big fan of calling out evil, even if you do it poorly. Just do it.
Well, he was freaking hilarious. So
like Pollock and Andy Warhol and the other CIA plants into art to destroy the art movement. Yeah.
He was my guilty pleasure in the novitiate, but he had a few fans that were underground. All right. Well, I just came to dig a little bit and not apologize, but put the Philistine comment in context.
Okay. Well, I honestly was so delighted when you said that. That actually made my whole day right there.
You'll take it. Huh?
So,
all right.
Not no offense, no serious offense taken.
I figured you would appreciate that and would gladly hone the moniker of Philistine.
Yeah. How much is the CIA paying you to support Pollock's work?
I can support Pollock's work. Pollock was brought up. I could, there's another guy named Cy Twombly who made a bunch of like crayon scribbles everywhere, and people like his work too. It looks like chicken scratch on big canvases, and he was kind of popular too.
Yeah, in the Meaning Crisis, just like with the pulp novels.
I think it was more that painting just got to be real navel gazy, and it had its TLC moments, and it got real thinky talky, and then it hasn't been the same since. But I
don't think it's painting. I mean, I think it's art in general.
Painting was maybe an early casualty.
Whatever the postmodern movement is, by the way, it's a Reformation. When everything collapses, and Sally and I have this conversation often, right? Like the question is it art if it's not pointed towards God, right? Or in the vicinity of? And it's like, well, that's a good question, because all the good art I like actually happens to fall into that, with some exceptions, right? Or maybe the way we say it is art has to be pointed up, right? And maybe not all art has to be pointed strictly up, because I saw the Book of Kells and they've got the devil, and that page happened to be open when I was there, because I don't know why I'm that lucky. There's only one depiction of the devil in the whole thing. It was beautiful. It's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. So you need those. But there is a sense about where art is pointing, and while I actually kind of understand exactly what Warhol did with the Campbell soup cans and why it was important and all that, it's not art because it's not pointing up, right? It's pointing across, and that's what Pollock is pointing. Who knows where? Nowhere, everywhere. Hard to say, right? And so that would not be art, because you can't really tell. Maybe Bosch is pointing down on purpose to provide contrast to what's pointing up. And maybe that's okay, because I actually rather like some of Bosch's stuff. It's just really hard to look at sometimes, and you don't want to stare at it for too long, but you also don't want to glance at it and look away, because that's dangerous, right? It's like you got to have like a real close discernment on that stuff. So that interaction is fine. So you've got the up and the down, but this across garbage where you put a banana on a wall with some tape. I mean, this is no good. It's no good. It's not art. It's no bueno. What are we doing?
I think you've got a real tough audience here, Jonathan.
Hey, I didn't come to convert. I just came to ask and to delve a little deeper. We can switch topics now. I'll hang out for a few, but I
want to know if this right here is the real pseudo-Boethius, or if it's a fake pseudo-Boethius.
He hasn't come on camera, I could tell you.
You mean a pseudo-Boethius?
Yeah. Well, what do you have to say for yourself? All right, that's not pointing at anything. I'll wait to hear some sort of communication before I let you on.
I will know, Eric, because I have met him.
Okay, and you can see what I can see.
Yeah. Okay.
I just, it's such a pain in the butt to use the YouTube editor if you get porn bombed. It's just awful. So
the YouTube editor is terrible.
Yeah.
If he wanted to prove who he was without his camera, I think he could tell me something from the summit. And
he could tell me something too, an interaction that we had over email. So
I didn't know about that. That's great.
yeah,
Yeah. There are other
that's
ways.
yeah. So
It would
anyway,
be nice if he were here because he is a lovely person and very fun.
yeah. So anyway, good luck, everybody. We're counting on you. So how do you guys know that the CIA was funding Andy Warhol and Jackson Pollock?
Well, abductively, you can think that given how popular they were and given what the CIA's incentives were, you can kind of put two and two together.
No, we have the records. You can bring him up, Feathers, definitely.
Well, he's gone
What
now.
was
Oh,
what
he
was the
vanished. Oh no.
Oh, he's gone?
what was the motive? What's the stated motive of the CIA psyop or
They
whatever
were
was
trying to
with Pollock?
manipulate the art world to run things. The CIA manipulates things. That's what they do. They were testing out.
But their
manipulation.
mission's only outside the United States, not inside.
Yeah. But they were using U.S. operatives to manipulate art in other countries. And there's a. I have not been able to find the references to this, but the person who told me this, I kind of trust, although he's a bit of a backstabber. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you. Continue with your thought.
David allegedly did a painting in Paris, I think, or somewhere in France, that was a signal to kick off the French Revolution. And he did it in full. This is what this guy told me. I have not found any evidence of this, but he was much better read than I was, and he's an artist. So, and he's also wealthy and lives in England. So it's a little hint that maybe he would know this, and I wouldn't be able to find it easily. So what he said was David did this, and the aristocracy was laughing at it because David had been doing these they're not caricature paintings, but they're paintings making fun of the aristocracy. The aristocracy was having a blast being made fun of because, of course, it's France, and France is weird. It's not just a French thing, but also I hate the French. So, but he did this one particular painting that was like a sign to the lower classes to, all right, let's all get the pitchforks and go. And how true that story is, I don't know. But he was very convincing. And so it's not like art hasn't done things that caused quote revolutions outside of the art world before.
So Pollock brought down the Berlin Wall. Is that what we're?
No, I don't think anything recent, but certainly in the past, I think art because of the role of art in society. Because much like music, see my awesome live streams, by the way, about music recently. It's yesterday and what was it? Last Tuesday. Because of the fact that art forms in general, more music than other art forms, but also other art forms, bring things together. That is it then becomes a tool of messaging at the very least, although we could maybe take it all the way to language. And so there is a form of communication, but way more importantly, unlike mere language, which it was always widely accessible to the masses, art is really only accessible to the people you care about, who move the world the most, because they have the most resources, right? And so really, if you want to manipulate those people, that's what you do. And you can see this. You could say, why was what's his name this week? Kanye West. Why was he so successful? Well, part of it is he got in with the wealthy crowd, and they were very much into street culture, and he was a very good representative of street culture, and so he was able to sell fashions, which are absurdly overpriced, into the market that could afford them, right? And that's how he got big, right? Was by doing that. I mean, that's not the only thing he did, but that whole pattern, I mean, that happens all the time. We'll say usually artists come from the wealthy class, and right, they're the lazy sons and daughters who aren't going to be good in business, right? That get paid to do those sorts of things, and there's nothing wrong with that model. I have no problem with this. But
they have leisure time.
When it's not, or when it's being manipulated by the CIA, who knows what you can do? Can you bring a government down? Probably. I mean, it's happened before, or at least seems to have happened before, where art forms have actually caused political upheaval or started wars. There's a lot of arguments for that, even post-Troy. But you could argue that the whole Trojan thing is basically an expression of that, right? You could say, oh, we've got because it's Helen of Troy's beauty that causes all the problems, right?
That's right.
Yeah. I'm just having a hard time asking why the CIA would be so intent on demoralizing the American public.
Well, they weren't targeting the American public necessarily. I mean, they might have also
Okay.
been. But the real question is, do you think that everything the CIA experiments with is successful? Because just because they did it doesn't
mean it was it worked. Yeah.
And maybe it did, and I just don't know because I don't care if the CIA thing is it's too hard to work out. There's too many ways the CIA can psyop your ass into believing that the CIA did or didn't do something. And so exploring the CIA is very, very tricky, except for instances where we have, people who were involved, right? And so, for example, I can say, even though there's almost no documentation for MK Ultra was real. It definitely happened at Harvard. It definitely screwed up a few people, and I have names. And the reason why I have names is because I know people whose relatives, right, were affected by that, and they knew it at the time. Like, they were aware at the time, not of MK Ultra specifically, but that there was funny business going on with some of these psychologists at Harvard, right? And so, and that's not one or two instances, and it's a quirk. I'm from New England. I was in Boston. I know, wealthy people from Boston whose kids went to Harvard back, right at the cusp when you, right before, or no, right after anybody could go, basically, or almost anybody, but right at the cusp. And so the wealthy were still sending their kids to the Ivy League schools. And the CIA definitely did that, and definitely caused the Unabomber, and definitely were in California as part of the MK Ultra thing, doing other weird things that, and they definitely destroyed almost all the paperwork because they were definitely going to prison forever if they had gotten caught, right? So there's things. I mean, they killed a lot of people by giving them LSD, man. So there's a lot of things the CIA tries and fails at, and I don't know what their goal was. And like I said,
their goal with Pollock in the abstract expressionism was to promote American individualism, freedom against all the hyperrealism of the Soviet regime, and I mean, I guess in the long run it worked. And the irony, of course, was that Pollock and his comrades were all, commie sympathizers and such. So anyway, so I mean, the CIA maybe had a motive to promote American cultural expressions that were contra, Soviet expressions. And so, hey, it's a great benefactor to have. I mean, once upon a time, some really bad people probably propped up Michelangelo and some other folks, and they made some nice.
No. The papacy was a stellar moral example at the time.
I don't mean that. I mean, the papacy, but I'll even give you just the Italian aristocracy, the Borgias and whatnot. I mean, I guess they did produce a few popes, but I didn't want to go there, Father. But
no,
this isn't propaganda is not new. But yeah, I mean, maybe the CIA stuff isn't always nefarious, like they're always so terrible. Maybe they're just, I mean, maybe I'm blowing right now. I shouldn't say anything, right?
And who likes to play on with history. There is absolutely, throughout all of art history, and we're going back to the Stone Age, there is always a political, religious, and social connection to art that is beyond the ability to explain completely rationally, because it operates on a psycho-spiritual level. And so it's not something you can sit there and draw equations for or rationalize. But we see it going back literally well before any written history. And so why is it that we human beings have to create is really the core question. If we want to get into the metaphysics of all this, Why is it do we have to go into our little cave walls and draw pictures of elephants and giraffes and aurochs and whatever, which actually has happened throughout history? We got preserved examples of it. What is it that's motivating us to do it? Who are we trying to impress? What are we trying to say? And why are the rich always involved? At least for the last 2,000 to 3,000 years, if not longer, there is definite sponsorship from the rich, whether it be ruling class, whether it be actual rich people, in terms of promoting these great public arts. And of course, the Greeks and the Romans were notorious about this, but so were the Egyptians as well. And they understood there was two things. There was a propaganda about it, hence an organization like the CIA or KGB are naturally going to be attracted to it. But also, there is a religious spirit about it too. It's a method of binding the people together around a common theme, a common cause. And for purposes of people like me and Mark, the most obvious example recently would be the Orthodox Church in America, or the Orthodox Church in terms of its Eastern rite and its use of icons. It's like, why is that so important to them? Why is that always being pushed to the foreground? Why are, you walk into one of their churches, and it's like walking into an art museum, for crying out loud. Byzantine era art museum, but still high quality art. They're very interested in their aesthetics. I personally would have a little preference for the Roman world of art, moreover than the Byzantine style. But Rome and the Catholics went through their Byzantine phase as well, and you can certainly find that. And so, the religious political sphere, it is a constant, and it works. It really does work. I mean, Jonathan Pajot and his crowd aren't there because they found a warehouse out in the suburbs that they're hanging out at. That they will tell you more so than anyone, this is a critical part of who we are as a people. And, you go to a place like St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City, which was an interesting area of conversation on Larry Chepp's show today, for the 2 or 3 of us who actually watched Larry Chepp and his theology. It's like, why is that place so amazing? Why is it, you definitely get the feeling of the presence of God when you walk into these Gothic cathedrals. Whether they're empty or full, there's just something there. There's something powerful that motivates you. And so these subjects are fun because...
It's because they're tall. I was just saying it's because they're tall.
They are tall. If you were to see me in real life, Mark would definitely...
He's tall. Yeah, that's tall.
I'm just saying the cathedrals are tall. They got to be tall. If they were cavernous, it wouldn't be quite as
no. There's
impressive.
But there's a technical architectural reason to let more light in. That's why they're tall.
Oh, and also they were consciously trying to emulate that of the forest, of nature, trying to make those tree trunks into stone and concrete and whatnot. But it's a fascinating conversation. But going back to the original, because I just saw his stuff in person when I was in Cleveland. And that would be Pollock, whose art was right next door to that of Rothko, whose art was right next door to that of Andy Warhol. It's like, what did all those guys have in common? Well, they were trying to break down barriers. They're trying to redefine art into a pop modernist culture. I mean, it's just utterly fascinating. So for me, with somebody like Pollock, isn't so much an individual unto himself. For me, I just see him in the taxonomy of all art throughout the ages and where it was going in the 1960s and how his art is informing us something about our culture at that time. Much like, Vatican II, for instance. Why did that come about? Why do we have to have a church council that doesn't do a single anathema? I know it's an old argument, but it's a relevant one. It's like, we're not going to condemn anything. We're not going to correct any errors. We're just going to have a church council just to get the gang all together. And
you know what? That's what Nostra Aetate needed. Is it needed a couple of good old-fashioned anathemas in there.
It's funny because the documents itself of Vatican II don't really seem all that horrible at all. Matter of fact, there's some brilliant things in them. It's just, as everyone says, it's the spirit of Vatican II that
The ghost of
really,
Vatican II. Yes, that's what we're dealing
exactly.
with.
Right.
And
That I would link that very much with Lovecraft and Pollock. And that, like, I think that's all part of the same spirit moving underneath that's changing a bunch of things. That's part of the manifestation of the meaning crisis that we're going through now. That's what I think is happening. Right?
And Mark was going back to the actual historical source of where all this really started getting traction, and that would be 1789 in continental France. Not the United States, not the New World. It was France where things started taking that left-handed turn, and we're still dealing with that to this very day.
Yeah.
So there are these strange connections that you just cannot do rationally or mathematically. You can see them. You can rationalize a bit here or there. But for me, in terms of someone like Pollock, I always like to think of it into the realm of data communications. And I have a binary of, is this signal or is this noise?
Yeah.
And of course, yeah, Mark said it. For someone like Pollock, it's like, we're going to elevate the noise now. We're tired of this signal stuff. We're tired of painting people that look like people. We're tired of doing art that looks like art. We're going to go find the noise, and we're going to elevate noise now. We're going to elevate the static. And that's about as rationalistic of a way I can interpret it in my own way, in terms of history and the history of art. And so I have, I can look at a Pollock all day. I took pictures of the last one I saw. The only one who really throws me off, believe it or not, is Rothko and his color field. It's like, really? You gotta be kidding. At least Pollock has got some actually like theory of color and design that you can actually see and perceive in his stuff. For Rothko, it's like you put some rectangles on a canvas, for crying out loud. I mean,
yeah. I've been to the Rothko Chapel. It was underwhelmed. I don't. Rothko doesn't do much for me, even though he's part of that same ilk. But
yeah, that would be it. Now, if I remember correctly, his chapel is in Texas. Is that correct?
well, I say I went there, but I can't remember where it is. So let me see.
How do you
If
spell
it's in
his name?
Texas,
I need to see the chapel now.
Rothko. Mark as in Lefebvre Rothko. It's in Houston. I don't know if I've actually ever been there. So I take it back. I have seen some Rothkos though. Maybe he had a show once. I mean, once you've seen a Rothko, you've seen them all. No offense.
Well, no, you're right.
Yeah. Although Pollocks are maybe kind of
They're-
like that too, if you're uninitiated. But yeah, they all.
Well, speaking about the uninitiated, I had to go find the chapel here. So let's see if
Yeah, there we go.
back.
An interview between Rothko and the Vatican. How about that?
You're not gonna like it, Father. It's a.
Where's the altar? Where's the tabernacle? Where's the crucifix? Where's Our Lady? We're all just sitting looking at each other.
It's a chapel of contemplation, Father.
Oh, it's a non-denom chapel. Yeah, so maybe he has a Catholic. I think in Europe though, he might have a Catholic, a real deal. Let's see, Rothko.
Self-contemplation from the looks of it, which is not real contemplation, would be my argument.
Rothko Catholic.
Now we're into meditation as self-meditation instead of group meditation, which is perfectly okay.
Ooh, that's
Meditation
another
by
one of my
terrible
specialties is contemplation, meditation, going back through history, how that all got derailed.
Lectio Divina is the only valid contemplation.
Well, it's one of the training wheels you use to get there, but it's definitely a valid one. You're right.
Everybody knows that real contemplation is infused directly by the Holy Spirit. You can read this in the Carmelite Doctors. It's not that complicated. I mean, it's probably really difficult, but it's not that complicated. So,
No, Father is correct. The history and the evidence is overwhelming in that regard. However, you have those folks like is it the Camdalese monks, the ones who are Benedictine but also Hermitage focused. They've got a big monastery out in Big Sur, California, and of course their thing is contemplation in whatever form it comes in, and that's where unfortunately contemplation kind of went off the rails in terms of Western Catholicism. Is the Church in the Vatican was getting a little too upset that, it seemed like, we're going after an abstract idea and trying to, get rules and regulations for how we're going to go about doing this, which was not a problem for centuries, including with the Carmelites. I mean, you look at St. Teresa of Avila or St. John of the Cross, and it's shocking how orthodox these people were. And how it just
is it really? They're canonized saints. I wasn't shocked by it at all.
well the thing is, you think of mystics, it's like, what kind of woohoo are they going to be throwing at us? And it's not at all. It's like going to CCD, for crying out loud. CCD for nerds. It's like, they're very hardcore orthodox, those guys. But yeah, it's like then the church started getting nervous about it, right? Surprisingly enough, right around the time of the Enlightenment, the Industrial Revolution,
Right.
and everything was getting all rationalistic, which to put a spicy sort of flavor on this, it's like, is the church driving politics the last couple of centuries, or is it just the little tail of the doggy wagging in response to the zeitgeist? And of course, there's different, arguments you could make there too. And of course, a lot of times with the traditionalist movement, it's like, well, we're not seeing the fruits that we were told we're going to be seeing by about this time.
Right. But that's sort of the problem, is this, it's wrong to cast it as a church problem. There is a church problem, but it's way bigger. And that is the problem, roughly speaking, of, quote, individualism, which is impossible. And this is where everything goes off the rails. Once you posit a world where individualism, or really anything like it, is possible, let's suppose you had, direct, unfettered access to God straight through a propositional thing. Maybe it's printed even. You're doomed. Like, your society becomes doomed, because even if you don't adopt it, because your church is not like that, everything's pulling in that direction. And so it's a bit like waking up and seeing materialism everywhere and having a very hard time getting unstuck from that materialism. And of course, Derek Fiedler and I talked about this on Friday, because I did 2 live streams on Friday, because I'm not a well human. And so, how many live streams in a row have I done now? It's ridiculous.
All of them.
All of them. Yeah, well, Thursday, 2 on Friday, 1 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday, and now we're here. And then last Tuesday, so it's going to be a long stretch.
Forgive the lighting here. I was relying on natural light, and now we're going through twilight, and so
dark.
I'm getting dark, but my white ceiling is outlining my head a little bit. So my apologies about that.
Yeah, it's all right.
I think the chiaroscuro is lovely. So
Caravaggio in the flesh. There we go.
Perfect.
One of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, that pressure that you're sort of pointing at, is all about this individualism and this whole cracking apart of order itself, and the removal. Because a lot of people think like, oh, the Protestants want to get rid of papal power. No, they moved. They were explicit. We're moving the papal power to the head of state. That's what they were doing. And so that was one piece that really helped me understand, oh, that's why everyone's talking about politics. That's why everybody's expecting politics to solve problems, because the thing that the Reformation did explicitly was place the churches underneath the kings. And to a greater or lesser extent, I mean, obviously that didn't work too well. A lot of them just split up, and like just the number of like splits from the Lutherans And then, they get back together in these bigger synods, and then they split again and get back, right? And they're all doing that. All the denominations are doing that. It's just an indication that this plan of theirs to get rid of papal authority, or at least move it to the sovereign, wasn't going to work because the other things that they broke in the process, right? And then everybody removes everything, and then you've got some nitwit like Gavin Ortland coming on and going, yeah, but Luther said this. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not following any of the other things Luther said. So how dare you just take one sentence that he said and say, see, this is the authority. You're not under his authority because you're not following any of the things he said. You're just, picking and choosing what you want to highlight, which sounds very much like what would happen if you tried something completely dumb like sola scriptura, which is exactly what ends up happening. Luther doesn't want this to happen, right? And to be fair, he's a pawn in a political game, and he doesn't realize it ever. I don't think he ever figures it out, right? But also, like, there was no reason for any of that to happen. Like, that should have been a stop, should have been put to that. But it was very much the political forces taking over the churches and wresting the religious authority away from the Holy Roman Catholic Church. And that's what creates all the problems. And we've been suffering from that ever since. And I think that, to your point, if you look at the progression of art, you see it there most clearly, right? You see very clearly that that's what happened, is that because of the breakdown of order, and because you no longer have the churches commissioning all of the art, basically, or most of the art, it just goes nuts. And eventually it culminates in the CIA taking it over, trying to manipulate everybody.
Well, that's what
it
you
sort of looked like
in the truly great art museums. Cleveland, I was shocked at how good their museum was. I was really shocked. I mean, and the breadth of their art, as well as the quality, was absolutely shocking. And
Detroit's got a good art museum too.
Oh,
Confirmed.
another one where I got
Detroit's is good.
Where I got my. Well, Boston's got a ton of them. Sadly, I've never been to any in Boston. I'd love to go, but yeah, where I got, started crunching on that was the Art Institute of Chicago, which also has an absolutely fantastic collection, mostly known for its fresh impressionists, which they do a very good job. But I mean, even Cleveland beat out the Art Institute of Chicago in some ways. They have a genuine Monet lily pond painting, which is just, as far as the impressionists go, that's like the top of the pyramid there. You go and see a lily pad painting by Monet. And it's funny because it's almost as abstract as anything that Rothko or Pollock was doing. And yet, because the focus and inspiration was nature itself rather than pure abstraction.
Yeah.
Because it's literally like going to a mill pond on some slightly windy day, and you're kind of seeing reflections, you're kind of not, and you get it. Your mind goes, oh yes, I've seen this before somewhere. I'm relating to what Monet is communicating here. Whereas when you look at a Pollock, it's like, oh yes, I saw this in a very badly wired computer network closet at one time.
I did. And confirm.
It's like, we need the network administrator to stop by immediately and put these things back in a nice little Germanic order so we can make sense of where these chords are going. I hate to say it, but I mean, that's the kind of things your brain is automatically going to relate to your experience when it comes to art. And so what people like Pollock were trying to do is break those chains, but it never really works. I mean, it's an important step, obviously, in the development of modernity. It's an important signpost. But it's like, we're in a situation now, and other people have pointed this out. I'm just being, a little mockingbird at this point. But why is medieval times still relevant to us? Why are horses and knights and armor? And why do people go look at Nolan's Odyssey and going, why did he set the Odyssey in the Middle Ages? Why are these, like, suits of steel armor in a Bronze Age flick and stuff like that? And it's like, obviously he's playing the zeitgeist here to a certain extent.
Right.
And obviously he has a lack of information about Ron Shade's Greece too. But I mean, he's making a work of art. Let's be honest. His film about Odysseus returning home is probably going to be his fanfare. Maybe one of the last pieces he ever makes on this sort of scale. So he's pulling out all the stops. Whether he's successful or not, I have my doubts, but I'll just keep that to myself. I'll let the man speak for himself. We'll all know in a very short time whether he pulled it off or not.
Yeah. I think one of the things going on with art is that icons are not really optional. They're always going to be there.
Yeah.
And so when you look at
just
the
look
art
at
that's
your
being
Windows
made,
computer
you
screen
know,
for crying out loud. There's icons all
Yeah.
over the place.
Yeah.
right.
Hold on now. This stream is running on a computer that's a Linux-based operating system. All
There we
right.
go. Well, okay, but what's the shell for your Linux? What shell are you using?
I'm using Linux Mint distro. So
Oh,
this
good
is
old Mint. There we go.
baby's
Yeah.
first Linux.
We asked you
That's
what
a
shell
very
you're
excellent
using.
choice, I think.
Are you on
Mint is-
Bash? Are you on
Mint
Z
is-
shell?
No, it's Bash by default. Mint is Bash by default.
Oh,
Almost
is it?
everything's Bash. There's a few that are ZSH, but ZSH or Bash.
I think Mac OS is done Z shell by default, but
Mac OS,
Yeah,
I
but
think that's Z shell.
it is now.
They're not using. Well, Z shell might be better than Bash, but
You
Bash
would
is the
never-
granddaddy. So
You would never guess in a million years what horrible computer and operating system I'm using right now. You would never
You're
guess.
using a
Windows.
Mac.
XP.
AOS.
Oh, Father Mac obviously is going in the right direction here. This is iOS on an iPad from several generations back. So I'm shocked it works at all.
Yeah. Well,
Give it a
hey,
try.
Apple gives you some very nice hardware, and then they were
It
the
gives you
first
Unix.
to charge you $200 for 8 GB of RAM. But I guess that's common now.
Oh my goodness. I think even the Windows realm, RAM and, well, it's definitely GPUs have always been expensive. But now that they have to buy up all the GPUs to run all the data centers in the world, I heard those are really getting to be real expensive too nowadays.
Yep, that's kind of our economy right now, is just building out these data centers, and that had better work, because I don't know what happens if that doesn't work.
We're not building cathedrals. It's not a good sign. We're not building anything that has any chance of lasting any amount of time, and we're dumping trillions of dollars into it. That is not going to go well.
Trillions of dollars into servers that are going to be obsolete in 7 years.
If even that long.
7.
That's one of my pet theories, Father, is that the enshittification of everything began with the digital revolution. Because in the digital realm, you have the constant churn. It's like, why do we need a new iPhone every single year? Well, we don't.
Yeah.
It's like,
but it's a flood. That's that's what you get when you get a flood, right? And once everybody can make art gets flooded with garbage, right? And once even anybody who's motivated enough or enabled by the CIA can make art gets flooded, right? The flood starts, and then you get somebody like putting freaking soup cans up and calling it art when it doesn't point up or down.
I'll have you know, Andy Warhol was a good Catholic his entire life. Well, he tried, from what I understand. He definitely came from a Catholic family. From what I understand, he was a weekly mass attender. That might be his hagiography more so than his reality. But
guilty conscience.
But he helped launch the Amiga, so some good things come from these.
There you go. Well, the thing is, I'm not as a strict a determinist as, say, like the Calvinists or whatever. But on the other hand, you have to, at least give him a nod in that, God has always got his reins on things. And if things get a little too crazy, we're always facing like the realm of, what was that great sci-fi movie from the 50s? The one with the spaceship that lands in Washington, D.C.?
The day the Earth stood still.
Exactly. And the whole threat was, well, if you guys get out of line, our little space federation is going to turn your planet into a burnout little cinder, because we're not going to deal with you people who are sitting around playing with open atomics and whatnot. We know where that leads. And that was the moral lesson of the film. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Now, they didn't mess around back then. It's like,
Well, yeah, but you also notice even by the 1950s that they were having aliens do that instead of Elijah returning and saying that.
Right. Well, because the materialism was already in full swing. Like you have to understand that there's no World War II, right? So there's a Great War. There's two acts. But the Great War is not over, because the thing that caused the Great War, which is materialism, is not over. Like, it has to end. And then I don't know if you guys have heard it, but Peterson released Lecture 1, The Problem That Won't Let Go. And some trollish person put it on my important videos on my server, Christopher. So, of course, I watched it. And you can see Peterson sort of struggling at the edges of this stuff. By the way, you will hear a lot of my language in that talk. Like, oh yeah. I told everybody, everyone's going to converge on the right language. I was just there first.
I'll just add this. I've seen Jordan Peterson live 3 times in person. Wow. And he is not the same man in person that he is on the videos.
No, not at all. Not at all.
He literally comes across like Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel all combined as one, and he will definitely get on his righteous high horse. And I would have to say, I'd have to agree with him. And he'll just call things out, and it's like, my goodness, why can't we have people in the church who go, and speak about stuff like this?
That is the question. The problem is he's still, importantly wrong about a bunch of things, and he does. Well, he does an interesting move at one point, right? He says we are personalities. And I'm like, see, you're so close. And of course, why does he say we are personalities? Aside from the fact that he has a class on personalities online. It's because he's starting from the psychological frame. He's starting from the individualistic frame. And then he's trying to resolve materialism. Well, guess what? You definitely can't resolve in an individualistic frame. You can't resolve the materialism. And you can hear him in that talk bumping up against the materialism time and time again. Only his language is upgraded. It sounds so much better, and he sounds so much closer. And he is exactly no closer than he was 6, 7, 8 years ago. He hasn't moved at all.
No, you're absolutely right, Mark. And there's definite things you can pick up in his conversations and in his videos where you can see the sticking points. But anyway, sadly, it's
these videos that he's posting now are like old videos, right?
No, actually, from his talk, Peterson Academy, he came out with a totally brand new one on Nietzsche that is literally quite up to date for him. And so it's old, perhaps like maybe being like weeks or months in production. But in terms of never before being seen, it is totally brand new. And that's only because I am a Peterson Academy member, so I get access to the new stuff. And that is a bit fascinating, especially for Father Mac's benefit. One of the great benefits is seeing Bishop Barron talk on Thomas Aquinas. That is worth the price of admission right there. And hear him, and he is spot on with Aquinas.
Is it any different than his essays on the New Evangelization, where he talked about being converted from Karl Rahner to Thomas Aquinas?
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
Well, it's a book. It's in a book.
Yeah,
essays on the New Evangelization. Because he went to seminary in the 80s. Back in the 80s, Mark, Karl Rahner was trying to redo Catholic theology under an emergence is good framework, basically.
But don't worry. According to Rahner, you're either going to be a mystical Christian or not a Christian at all in the very near future. And it's funny because there is that little drop of truth in what he's saying too. Just look at the oncoming wave of Eastern Orthodoxy, which
a guy like Karl Rahner or Immanuel Kant, for that matter, could probably wipe the floor with me in a debate. That's fine. but it doesn't mean that you're right.
I'll take them both. I'll take them both on right now and destroy them.
I was talking about myself, Mark.
I know.
You
I'm just saying, Father. I will get in front of that bullet and stop it dead. Shatter it in 1,000 pieces.
Mark is our real life Neo.
It's true. It's interesting because the other thing Peterson does at one point in this talk is he actually says like psychologically or spiritually and equates the two. And it's just like, holy cats, Jordan, what are you doing, dude? You are
I mean, the psyche is just the soul, right? And so psychological is just the science of the soul.
It's a piece
well,
of the
that's
soul.
literally how we translate the word psyche, correct?
Yeah,
psyche is a Greek word that we translate as soul.
Right, but I talked about this last Tuesday with Neil deGrasse, right? Like psychology is just a slice of the soul. That's how they're using it technically, because they want to do science on it. But you know, the bottom line is the reason why we're seeing all this stuff and why it's reasonable and not entirely wrong and in fact frighteningly accurate to say something like, you know, the future is spiritual or mystical or something, is because when you are in materialism, when you're stuck with the primary cause as being material, whether you believe in non-material things or not, and then that doesn't work out, you have to go somewhere, and the only place left is into the non-material or ethereal realm, which is the technically correct term. I'm going to maintain that, right? And that's why people are moving in that direction. They've run out of this ability to propositionalize the world, to convert it to propositions, which they think is knowledge for some reason. They're just wrong about that, right? And now they need to explain these things that they can't explain. And so, they're moving into the mystical, whether it's John Vervaeke with his, imaginal realm and serious play and flow state craziness, or Peterson with his psychologically or spiritually. It's like, what are you trying? I mean, everything Peterson said in that talk would be great if it weren't all completely individualistic. He never references, he references the outside as though it's some kind of an opponent and not a friend. And he at least talks about cooperation versus opposition. So I'm like, all right, well, that kills the Vervaeke crowd. Thank goodness for that. But you can't get out of where he's stuck.
Vervaeke. But all right. Well, unfortunately, it's one of those nights for me where everybody in the world wants to talk. So I'm going to have to bug out. But it was good meeting you all, finally. On video, virtual meetings count as far as I'm
long-time caller, or long-time commenter, first-time caller. So
it had to happen. It was Mark. It's all Mark's fault, especially with that last name of his. Because I've been doing the whole Lefebvre thing too. But that's a whole topic for another day.
We'll do it next time.
Sure.
Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a blast hanging out with him at the Symbolic World Summit too. He's an interesting
Lefebvreists.
Yes.
The Lefebvreites. Yeah.
Marcel Lefebvre over here. You even have the same name.
True. I don't know anything about that guy. I don't think he's related at all. But
he got excommunicated in 1988.
Not part of my family, I'm afraid.
There's lots of Lefebvres out there, as we've learned.
There was 2 in all of Massachusetts when I was young.
Only 2 clans?
In Massachusetts, yeah. I mean, if you go up to Biddeford, forget it, because Biddeford, Maine, that was the largest group of French Canadians outside of Canada. So, I couldn't date up there because I was related to everybody. That was the joke. And believe me, we made that joke a lot. I was like, hey.
That was, the place where my grandparents came from had the same sort of reputation of everybody intermarrying. And so that's why my dad married a girl from California, just to make sure that, but then as it turns out, she's got relations from Sleepy Eye, Minnesota. So, might not have worked as well as he thought.
Hey, look, cousins are okay in the Mosaic Law, right? So you're probably okay as long as it's not your.
Well, yeah, and You can get dispensations in the collateral line up to the fourth and third degree. So that's quite a bit closer than I'm comfortable going. But
yeah. The social stigma these days is just not gonna
kids
fly.
with the webbed feet and all that.
Well, nobody knows. Well, it's interesting too, because that's Lovecraft plays into that, right? People have look
Here we
inbred,
go. Full
and-
circle.
and they're not, which is even more interesting, right? It's just that when you worship these things, it looks the same as being inbred, right? So like all the Dagon,
That's
the
like
Dagon
that's like a
worshipers-
reverse. That's like the reverse indwelling. It's like the
Yes.
indwelling of Satan at that point.
exactly. No, he nailed it all. Like Lovecraft is deep and brilliant, and like it. And do not read Lovecraft; it's scary. Unless you read Horror at Red Hook. Horror at Red Hook's not that scary, although it is for a detective story. It's pretty scary.
Is it scary, or it's not like, or is it just
Disturbing? Are you looking for disturbing?
scary? Yeah. What kind of scare are we talking about?
No, Lovecraft is the only thing that has ever actually scared me, and that was a story I was reading. Ever. I've like come close to death several times. Didn't bother me at all. I've had some things that were like disturbing to me that I was like, oh.
What's the shortest yet most disturbing relative to the shortness Lovecraftian work?
Oh, there's so much good stuff. I couldn't pick
just
one.
Just pick one. It's at random, right? It just
so much stuff. Like he's got so much good stuff. I don't know.
But it's basically, like this is kind of the thing I was looking at. It's just like,
do Dagon. Dagon's pretty disturbing. Do Dagon.
all right.
That should
DAGAN, like the old
O-N.
Capital
DAGON.
one. Yeah.
Dagon.
Dagon. Okay,
Like dragon with no R.
got it. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Do Dagon. Dagon's pretty, and then there's like, there's longer stuff like at the Mountains of Madness, right? That's a really good one. I mean, there's so much good stuff, and I actually got into them on Dream Quest of Unknown Kadav, which is actually not so scary, and then the Cats of Ulthar is excellent. Those aren't quite so scary. Yeah, Cats of Ulthar I don't think is scary at all, but like the Horror at Red Hook is just a really good detective story that also happens to be that way. The music of Eric Zahn is like, that's like, what is this nonsense? This is crazy. Oh, Rats in the Walls. I mean, he has so much good, like a really good, like frightening stuff. But I think, I think I'd stick with Dagon. Although Rats in the Walls is also really, really well done.
Well, I gotta start somewhere. I'll try one.
Start with Dagon and then do the music of Eric Zahn. If you're not impressed with Dagon, I think you'll definitely be impressed with music of Eric Zahn. That's pretty like, what is happening here?
It's a short story. How about 2,200 words? 4 to 5
It's all
pages.
short stories. He has almost nothing of any length. But it's like reading Milton, only maybe worse even. He's very dense. He uses interesting sentence structures, and
it's all open source. Not open source. Public domain
now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he died in the 1936 or something like that's all well out of.
All right, no spoilers. I'll read Dagon and I'll come back with a full report or something.
Full report. And if you get addicted, because you actually end up liking some of the Gothic horror, because I actually like some of it. Read it all. I mean, it's great. It's really great.
We'll see. I mean, I hear enough about Lovecraft and Lovecraftian horror and all the different monsters and stuff, but I've always been like, it just seems hokey and goofy, but I don't know any better, so I'm gonna read one before I.
But it really is. He really is like an extraordinarily good writer. It's just the genre is terrible. Like if he could have put those talents to something else, he'd been, it would have been like Milton. Who needs Milton, right? Yeah, and if he could have combined it, maybe it would have been Who Needs Dante as well. But he was Meaning Crisis. He was meaning. Well, the thing is, like he's talking at the same scale as Dante, right? See, I mean, he's able to go there at some level. I don't think he.
It's just the world he was inhabiting had been broken to pieces already, so he couldn't give a cohesive view of the universe like Dante did.
Right. Well, also, I don't think he could sit down and write for any length of time. I think that's why it's short stories and super dense sentences. And
No, it was the Nameless City is, I think, the one that Metallica quoted. So,
oh yeah.
Well, they've got a couple songs, Call of Cthulhu
Call of
and
Cthulhu. That's, yeah.
the thing that should not be.
Yeah.
But no, they're quoting a bunch of stuff. Yeah, a lot of the early metal guys are actually quoting Lovecraft and Edgar Allan Poe, and Metal Church is great. Their first few albums were great for that. They were Poe fans, so you get a lot of Edgar Allan Poe metal songs. That's good stuff.
Meanwhile, Gentle Giant was quoting Rabelais. You guys all know Gentle Giant, right? It's not just literally me. Jonathan, not even you? Okay.
Gentle Giant. No, I've never heard of it. What is this? Like South Dakotan metal from the
No.
80s,
It's extremely experimental prog rock from the 1970s.
Oh yeah, I don't go too deep into the 70s prog rock.
Okay.
70s. Yeah, no.
That's my bread and butter right there. Just ask Mark how much I enjoy listening to Yes.
I listened to UK the other day, Father.
That's a solid band.
You know that one? That's a solid band, right?
Was it their first or their second album?
The one with the red cover. I don't know. I could tell you. Hold on. Let's see. What did I listen to by UK? It's pretty good.
Was it Danger Money?
No.
In the Dead of Night?
Wait, do they have a self-titled?
I think it's self-titled, their first one.
Yeah, it was the 78 self-titled one. Mm-hmm.
Nice. That's a good album.
Soft Machine, Pink Crimson. I mean, that's a who's who of prog rock from the 70s. So
yeah.
All right, so that's your jam. Also, Sally, I see you there. The Color from Outer Space. Okay. All right, I'll see it.
And then just think about Pollock. Oh no, that's a good call, Sally.
All right, I'll see it.
Who gave Sally books?
Pollock. You won't like Pollock after that.
Is Sally allowed to read? I feel like if she can read, it's probably makes her overpowered.
True. Yeah, it's interesting that if you trace it artistically, especially through the literature, that whole flood of kind of low quality stuff that vanished, stuff that never got put into better print. And, maybe comic books is the same. Actually, I'm not a comic book fan. Another small break with Peugeot. Although I think what he's doing is right, is to revivify comics or revivify the comic art style or something. I can get on board with that. Maybe that's good.
Graphic novels are like all the kids read these days. They don't even read books that just have words anymore.
Well, they can't.
Elementary school.
Yeah, they can't. That's the problem.
They could if we actually just made those for them.
No, I don't think they can. I think they.
No, I think they could. They just don't have any options. They're not giving any options.
They have the same options I had when I was a kid.
No, but yes, those books still exist. I'm just saying that all the kids read these days are graphic novels.
Right, but
that's their Overton window for what they read.
Yeah, but I think that's a function of them not being able to read, which is all over the data. Like they can't read.
No, I just think it's what's on the menu, and they don't know how to order off the menu, and no one gives them the better menu. I think they could actually read it.
I mean, the manga section.
My son read Hatchet. Remember the book Hatchet? Everyone read Hatchet, right? Most people read Hatchet. Gary Paulson, no Hatchet. No. Okay. Well, I mean that's a kid's book with just words, and they read it.
The manga section is very large in Barnes and Noble, but it's in the Barnes and Noble, and there are other sections. I don't understand. I think they're not attracted to it because it doesn't make sense to them because their comprehension is poor. So they have high literacy and low comprehension. See Navigating Patterns. I have a video on this. Right. And so with the flood of literacy, you drown out comprehension. And then you get people who don't understand that Plato's Cave has nothing to do with individualism and in fact is impossible. right up to and including PhDs in history who apparently didn't read it.
You'd be very pleased, Mark. The guy who's teaching our philosophy and theology of law class is the dean of the School of Philosophy here at Catholic University of America, and he was just making a passing comment about Plato's Republic and how I was like, okay, really, the smartest man in the world ever actually was proposing that people live in a polyamorous communist society. He was clearly joking.
Oh, I love this guy. Can I meet him? We're coming in July. We're going to stop at DC in July.
I mean, maybe I could see. I think he would like me from the class because I ask lots of questions and engage. So that's probably favorably disposed to me.
Shake his hand and say thank you. And if it was nothing else, that would make my entire existence better. Like instantly. Just want one other person who understands how funny Plato's Republic is, because it is a whopping riot.
Yeah, he's your guy. I've been enjoying the class all the way through, and I'm especially enjoying it now because it's all coming together. And like all of that time we had to spend reading legal positivism from tedious Germans is it's like, oh, okay, now I know why I had to read that, because our man from Spain is responding to that, and if I didn't know you could respond to that, it wouldn't make much sense, So that's one of the effects of teaching your philosophy classes from bad to good.
Yeah,
which is kind of how most of the philosophy classes I've gotten have gone, unless they're just a historical survey. So there's something to that method right there. So we had to suffer through, Kelsen and Dworkin in order to be able to appreciate. Oh, and Sohm. Yeah. So now I know all these extra names, and in theory, it'll make me a better canonist. So,
are you getting another degree, Father, or is this the same program?
It's the same canon law program. It takes 4 years. So if you've heard me talk about it for a while, it's because
that's
takes
what
4
you're
years.
Okay. So you're doing another DC summertime classes.
Yep.
And such?
That's why we're in Eastern time for our starts and our finish, and that's why the background's different with this dropped ceiling instead of my lovely wood paneling back in Fargo.
Yeah, I was gonna say not quite as what's the pastoral rustic. It's a little more dormitory there in what is it, Catholic University?
It's an interesting place that I'm living at. It's a parish rectory, and living here, we've got 6 priests and a hermit. So the dinner time conversation's actually astonishingly lively, and the hermit's the one who does a lot of the talking. So,
well, I mean, he's got company for once, right? I mean, come on. He's like, oh, great people.
I love it. It's a lovely building. Nice location.
Yeah.
If you go to the Jesuit residence at Georgetown, there's a giant bowl of cash sitting in the kitchen. Just help yourself.
I'm going to ask. I actually have a Jesuit in my philosophy of theology of law class. He's a riot to hang out with, and I'll ask him about that. There's a giant bowl of cash. That's just, if you need the money, you could just.
It's what do they call it? They call it something. It's like, it's just like the petty cash. But at Georgetown, it's like a lot of cash. Whereas like in the Midwest, it was a lot less. But. It's expensive out there in DC. They need to do lots of fun stuff.
I actually I do have a question, Father, about philosophy of law from a Catholic perspective, if that's okay.
We can finish up with that.
So, have you heard of the Isaiah Berlin distinction between positive and negative liberty, like freedom from and freedom to, basically?
Yeah.
So, is that accepted among Catholic theologians?
I don't think we would talk about it in terms of him. We tend to have a pretty well developed system of rights, but not all rights are the same. So you might have a claim right where you can go in and say, I am able to claim this from you because it's your duty to provide that to me. So an instance of that would be the Catholic's right to the sacraments. If somebody makes a reasonable request and they're properly disposed and they're not prevented by law, then I am required to give them the sacraments there. And then there might be something like a liberty right where nobody can coerce you in this particular manner. And so a liberty right would be something like nobody can be coerced to accept a particular state in life in the church. So you can't be forced to marry somebody. You can't be forced to become a priest. These are things that you need to be able to choose freely. And there's two more examples that are talk about. Although this particular these things have always been there, but this particular way of talking about the four different types of rights, I think we actually got from the common law tradition relatively recently. But it's really useful, so you can you could do that. So it's even maybe a little more detailed than just a positive right. I can do this, and a negative right. No one shall prohibit this. There's plenty of nuance there to handle a society.
But I find it interesting that a secular Jew came at the same general rough conclusion as the Catholic Church in some sense.
That sort of thing happens all the stinking time because there's only so many correct ways to do things, right? And like with legal systems, that's one of the fascinating things about learning canon law is, it's a legal system, and I think it's a real legal system. I think it works if the people who are using it use it properly, which probably fails about as often as civil law systems. So, this is what living on the earth is like. But you get like different ways to get to, the same protection of rights there, So like in the common law system, you're very likely to have a jury trial. We've got multiple people deliberating on questions of fact, and they're being instructed by the judge on questions of law, right? So you've got somebody in charge of the facts, somebody in charge of the law, and that sort of distinction. And there's a way to provide for, answering both of those questions in the common law system if you're doing a trial. Whereas in the canon law system, the judges decide both the questions of the fact and the questions of the law. But like you still have the same functions being performed. There's just a different, tradition and judicial philosophy animating it. So, you don't have a jury of your peers. You have 3 to 5 judges looking at your case and deciding these things. And there's, just all throughout the whole system of canon law that I've been learning about. There's just been noticing all, this is different than, the common law system that we have. But it can serve the same purpose. And, ultimately, these things are about as good as the people who are running them. So personnel is in fact policy.
Do you know how unlikely it is statistically, Father, that would happen, though? I mean, the only way that would even be likely that somebody outside of the church and somebody inside of the church come to the same conclusion is if they shared a pre-created reality. It's the only way. Otherwise, it'd be statistically impossible. I'm just saying.
I don't think we have a single creation denier on the stream tonight.
No, we do. It's okay. It's
the
one.
We all like Miller Lite because it tastes great. All right.
All right. So, anyway, any last words, anybody?
Thank you, Father.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you as well. So,
all right. Well, thank you all for joining me. And, it is getting to the end of the day. It's dark outside. And even if it's a minute early, I think I am tired. And we'll go ahead and wrap this stream up. But we'll see, hopefully, all of you next week. And God bless you all.
God bless.